So here's an AP Stats problem from 2015. This is FRQ number 1 from 2015. And the problem tells us that we've got two large corporations, A and B. They hire many college graduates as accountants at entry-level positions. In 2009, the starting salary for an entry-level accountant position was $36,000 at both corporations. At each corporation, we collected data from 30 employees who were hired in 2009 as entry-level accountants and were still employed at the corporation 5 years later. The yearly salaries of the 60 employees in 2014 are summarized in the box plots below. So obviously we've got one labeled as Corporation A's box plot, another one labeled as Corporation B's box plot. We've got our x-axis down here. Our scale for the x-axis and units are also labeled. Part A asks us to write a few sentences comparing the distributions. This phrase right here, if you see it, compare the distributions or describe an individual distribution, you're going to want to comment on 4 things: shape, outliers, center, and spread. So if you think about the acronym SOCS, S-O-C-S, that should help you keep track of the things you need to comment on. Now, as you do this, don't be generic. Make sure you're using units. Make sure you're talking about things in context. These are the little details on AP Stats FRQs that can kind of make or break your response. So I'm trying to be very deliberate by including context and units here. So I'm talking about shape initially. So the distribution of salaries for these accountants at Corporation A 5 years later is skewed to the right, right? I've got my tail on the right dragged out much further than the tail on the left. But at Corporation B, I look at this and I see all the components of this box plot are roughly the same length. So I said that Corporation B has a shape that's roughly symmetric for their salary distribution. Now, I also commented about outliers there. There are definitely 2 outliers for Corporation A, indicated by those stars. They don't necessarily attach to that upper part of the box plot. They're deliberately cut off from it. So that's how you indicate an outlier in a box plot. Corporation B doesn't have that. So Corporation B doesn't have outliers. So I took care of shape and outliers with those first couple sentences. Now I'm going to take care of center. Now for center, you're going to either want to say something about the mean or the median. In this case, we don't really know the mean, but a box plot is going to tell us the median. It's right where that center line is. So the median for both companies is roughly the same, right? The center line cuts the overall box into 2, is at roughly $51,000. So the median of both corporations' salary distribution is roughly $51,000. And then I need to say something about spread. Now for spread, you're typically going to want to comment on either standard deviation or interquartile range. As you've talked about this within your AP Stats course, you've hopefully said if you use median as your description for center, you're going to want to use interquartile range for your description for spread. If you use mean for center, which we did not do, you're going to want standard deviation for your preferred measure of spread. In this case, we've gone with median for the center. We're going to go with interquartile range for spread. So the interquartile range of the salary distributions is a little bit larger for Corporation A, right? We've got a little bit more space horizontally from there to there than we do from there to there. So I did have to estimate this. I said that Corporation A has an interquartile range of approximately 8,000, but Corporation B has an interquartile range of approximately 6,000. I did comment on the overall range because that's a pretty big difference between the two. The overall range from minimum to maximum is much larger for Corporation A, roughly 42,000 from here down to here, where it's only about 20,000 from here down to here for Corporation B. So as long as you commented on each of those things, you did so within context, you should have been good. Here's what the scoring guidelines said you needed to do. So we talked about this right away, and this is not just specific to this problem. You want to do that in every AP Stats FRQ that you ever answer. Make sure you're identifying things within context. They are requiring for us to comment on center, spread, and a discussion of outliers. So as long as we hit all of those things, even though we hit a little bit extra, that's definitely going to get us all of the things that we needed to comment on in order to receive a mark of essentially correct for Part A. Now in Part B, Says, suppose both corporations offered us a job at that 36,000 a year starting salary as an entry-level accountant. The first part of Part B says, based on the information you can get from the box plots, give one reason why you might choose to accept a job at Corporation A. Well, it's pretty obvious. There, even here, even upper quartile. You have the opportunity to earn a higher salary at Corporation A after 5 years, excuse me, than you do at Corporation B. So I'm writing my response in context. So I'm using units. I'm talking about the corporations, talking about 5 years later, I'm going to have the opportunity to earn a higher salary. I'm referencing the statistical measures, right? Using the language of statistics in my response. Although the median of the 30 employees at each company is approximately the same, the upper quartile is higher for Corporation A, right? The upper 25% of earners at Corporation A earn more than the upper 25% of earners at Corporation B. We also have those two outliers at Corporation A. It'd be nice if 5 years down the road, you could be one of the people earning one of those outlier salaries. Those outliers, along with this salary right here and anything else that might be on this portion of that distribution for Corporation A, is higher than any earner at Corporation B. So that's basically what I've said throughout this. In context, using the language of statistics, definitively saying this is why I would choose Corporation A over Corporation B. Now, part 2 of this is asking us to kind of do the same thing for Corporation B. So what sticks out about Corporation B is kind of the safety of getting a raise, right? Check out that salary at Corporation A. Corporation A, if you bring that down to the x-axis here, looks like that is still stuck at $36,000. But at Corporation B, the lowest salary earner has already gotten a raise of at least $4,000 or $5,000 after that 5-year stretch. So the guarantee of having salary growth, should I stay at Corporation B for 5 years after starting at $36,000, is the clear advantage. Once again, this response, if you take a few seconds to read through it, it's in context, it uses units, it's using the language of statistics. So I'm talking about the minimum salary of Corporation A earners, right? Corporation B has a minimum that's significantly above that minimum for Corporation A. So although I don't have the opportunity for as high of growth in my salary at Corporation B, I'm guaranteed to get some growth at Corporation B, where that isn't necessarily the case for Corporation A. If you look at the scoring guidelines for Part B here, they're talking about identifying a specific statistical measure, right? So I think we talked about quartiles, outliers in the first part of Part B. We talked about, in the second part of Part B, we talked about the minimum being higher for Corporation B than Corporation A. And then explanation in context, talking about why that is relevant.